Hello everyone, welcome back to part 2 of the Nike ads. We had such a great time talking about this last episode, so we thought why not continue the talk this week. So we're going to kick it off right away with probably one of Nike's most controversial, I would say, top advertisements, which was their 25th anniversary of Just Do It. It was the one with Colin Kaepernick. Oh, wait, it wasn't the 25th. It was the 30th. Sorry. It was their 30th anniversary. It was the one that they got Colin Kaepernick, who was the former San Francisco quarterback. This was after he kneeled and all of, pretty much he kind of got kicked out of football. So for them to have taken him on as a sponsor and as the face of their 30th anniversary poster was quite big. We're going to go into some of the things that happened afterwards, but let's take a listen to the campaign.
If people say your dreams are crazy, if they laugh at what you think you can do, good. Because calling a dream crazy is not an insult, it's a compliment. Don't try to be the fastest in your school. Be the fastest ever. Don't believe you have to be like anybody to be somebody. Don't become the best basketball player on the planet. Be bigger than basketball. Believe in something, even if it means sacrificing everything. If you have only one hand, don't just watch football, play it. And if you're a girl from Compton, become the greatest athlete ever. Yeah, that's more like it. So don't ask if your dreams are crazy. Ask if they're crazy enough.
This is honestly one of my favorite ads.
They're so good at it, I can't get over it. Every single ad is just amazing. Who writes these things?
It's really interesting how they always play into, the current, social issues almost, because I remember the U.S. going crazy when Kaepernick kneeled. They all thought that he was, disrespecting the flag and, disrespecting, the people who fought for their country. But really, he was, kneeling for so much more. And it's so crazy. Literally crazy, exactly what was in the ad, that a year later, it's getting brought back up with all the BLM movements, and people are kind of understanding a little bit more why he was kneeling for the police brutality and so much more.
I think Nike definitely saw an opportunity there to gain publicity and, PR and stuff, which is, not a bad thing, but just, I feel like they're so good at identifying those moments and capturing them and then making them into ads, and that's what makes that's what attracts so much attention, so good for them.
It's really interesting that they decided to take Kaepernick's side as well, because they knew that he was very controversial. They knew that so many people didn't understand why he was kneeling, were so against him. He got kicked out of the NFL. Well, he got blacklisted or whatever, but I found it just so interesting that they did choose to take his side and go with him, because they knew that would receive backlash. But I thought it was almost awesome that they did that, I'm not commending them for profiting off of a social issue or anything. I'm just saying that it's very interesting that they did choose to support him.
Yeah, I think also going off of that, this was in 2018, and I remember right after this, a lot of people started boycotting Nike and going to lengths where they would burn their Nike stuff. And I wonder if Nike saw that coming or not.
I don't think they saw the extent that people would go. I think they were going to, I think people would be oh, I don't like that they chose them. But I don't think they would actually, thought that people would start actually, burning and protesting, their, stuff. That was extreme.
I still don't get how that was even an issue with people, especially just with this ad where he's saying it's literally about your dreams. Obviously they kind of touch on it, and having Colin Kaepernick is a big statement, I guess, if you want to put it that way. But this ad is literally just about having a dream and pushing for it. It literally doesn't have to be political,
Yeah, they even released the poster where it said, believe in something even if it means losing everything. Like, I don't know if you guys remember, like, the one where it's just his face. It's, like, just a poster, and it says that. Again, like, that's such an empowering line and has nothing, it doesn't need to be political. I mean, I know everything he stands for was, like, basically fighting politics and, like, the police system. But, like, you can take that in so many ways. If you really didn't like Colin Kaepernick, you didn't need to not like Nike, I guess, if is what I'm trying to say. I don't know.
Also, interesting with this one is in the last episode, we talked about Charles Barkley's ad with I'm Not a Role Model. And I feel like this one with Kaepernick is just, like, the complete opposite message. Where Charles Barkley's was more about, like, don't look up to me. I'm just an athlete. I'm not a perfect person. I find Kaepernick's is more, I am an athlete, but that gives me a platform and a voice to be able to, you know, change the world, I guess. So it's kind of interesting seeing how they've changed over the years.
I can see why people would find Kaepernick kneeling, like, wrong or whatever. Like, I could see why, but why people would see that as wrong and why people would kind of not like, certain people might not like that, but the ad, like, I don't understand why does it have to be, it's just so inspiring. Why do people have to read into everything so much? And I think, like, that was such a good point. Like, I also think they do, like, such a variety of ads, like Ella said. Like, they did one where it's like, oh, I'm just an athlete. And now they're doing the ones with Kaepernick that are really inspirational in not just an athletic way, but also in, like, a fighting for issues kind of way. So, yeah, that's a really good point. I didn't even think of that.
So now just moving on to the next one, I'm also going to touch on, like, Natasha's point about, like, how far we've come and, like, that people are doing it now. So in 2020, Nike released an ad that was very more directly political and much more making a statement, and they released an ad forcing viewers to not pretend there's not a problem in America. After the protests with George Floyd and basically, like, the Black Lives Matter movement kicked in, Nike released an ad that says "Don't do it," and it addresses racism in America. This is just an ad that's basically, like, writing over black screen, so there's no visuals, and yet it's still so powerful. So I think this just speaks to how powerful Nike is with the words they choose to say. There's no, like, even audio, it's just music, so I guess I can read it. So it says, for once, don't do it. Don't pretend there's not a problem in America. Don't turn your back on racism. Don't accept innocent lives from being taken from us. Don't make any more excuses. Don't think this doesn't affect you. Don't sit back and be silent. Don't think you can't be part of the change. Let's all be part of the change. Nike, for once, don't do it.
This one is such a good marketing message. Like, the fact that they used their full slogan and turned it into this whole, it's amazing.
You know, it's such a powerful message and such a powerful commercial, and obviously they still did it for publicity and revenue, and that's something that, you know, people have to keep in mind. I feel like I mean, it's still obviously still very powerful and stuff like that, but people often praise these brands and say, oh, they released this, like, they support this, that's so amazing, but people also have to remember that they're doing it also for revenue and for publicity and attention.
But I think they're taking a huge risk doing it, because, like, looking back at the Kaepernick, they could have lost so much money. Like, people could have, like, hated them. So I think, like, I totally get what you're saying. At the end of the day, like, companies just want to make money, but, like, I think taking a stand on something, especially so, I don't understand why, but so controversial about, like, Black Lives Mattering, they could easily have gotten like not lost money and not made money.
Mm-hmm. That's an interesting point too, Elizabeth, and I'm not, like, disagreeing with you. I just want to bring this up as, like, a devil's advocate kind of thing, where it's like, for this sort of thing where if a company didn't speak up about Black Lives Matter, it was, like, canceled. I'm not buying from you anymore because you clearly don't care. So they have no choice but to do it, right? So whether it comes from a place of, like, wanting to make money or if it comes from a genuine wanting to make a change, I think the fact that they're putting it out is what matters. And I loved this one. No, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just bringing that up as a point. Like, they don't really have a choice. But I think this one seemed pretty genuine for me, especially because a lot of Nike's athletes in every single commercial we've had have featured a Black athlete. Like, I think they really did care about it, which is good to see.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and I'm not, like, bashing Nike. I love Nike, all my clothes are Nike, but, yeah, I just think, like, people get sometimes so wrapped up and feel like every company that releases, you know, a BLM post is amazing when, you know, there was a point when the protests were happening where even companies that didn't care that much, they still release stuff like that and still use the hashtags just because, you know, if they didn't, as you said, Ella, like, they would be, like, canceled.
That's a good point. Well, the next one came out really recently, and I think it's probably one of my favorites. So it was for International Women's Day last year in 2020, and they were celebrating the women who moved sports forwards in hopes that one day, every day, will feel like this one that we mark on our calendars is how they marketed it. So it's called One Day We Won't Need This Day. Let's take a listen.
One day, we won't need this day. We won't need a day to celebrate how far we've come. We won't need a day to prove we're just as fast or strong or skilled. We won't need a day to relive the comebacks, the firsts, or the titles we've won. We won't need a day to rally behind the ones fighting to change the rules. One day, we won't need this day at all, because one day, this day, will be our everyday.
I love how it's the voice of a young girl. Like, I think for a lot of other young girls out there, this ad really speaks to them.
And I think also the way that Nike uses a mix of real athletes as well as normal people. Like, they had, like, Naomi Osaka in there mixed in with, like, just a random girl skateboarding, and then they'd go to Serena Williams, and then I think I saw Ibtihaj Muhammad in there too, and then, like, younger girls that, you know, are just, like, models and actresses kind of thing. But I just love how it's a mix of the real athletes and the normal people, because it shows, like, you can still be just as great. Like, go off, Nike.
I don't even know what to say about this one. Like, it's just great. Like, every commercial is so good. Like, honestly, good for Nike. I don't know another company that's so good at making them.
This one also, I think just the tagline itself, like, one day we won't need this day, it's similar to the one from 1998 that we talked about before. What was it called? If You Let Me Play, where it's like, maybe the visuals aren't so stark, I guess, and, like, startling, but the message behind it is the fact that we have this one day a year where we feel, like, so great, and then eventually every day will be like that. It's, like, so sad when you put it that way, but I think this was a great one.
Well, yeah, because it's also, like, important to like, on Women's Day, you know, they do these Women's Day, women's broadcast on all women's broadcast on TSN, and they do all and, like, it's all women's this, all women's that. It's like, okay, it's like almost like I don't want to say a charity event, but it's almost like, okay, we will give it to you guys on this one day. Like, I mean, it's good that they're doing that, but at the same time, it's like, well, why does it have to be done on this one day? If a woman is really good at what she does, let's say commentary or whatever, why can't she do it any other day? Like, why does it have to be on this one day? Like, that's a really good...
Similar to, like, the Black Lives Matter conversation we were having, where it's like a lot of companies post it because they have to, like, but we want to see it past just March 8th. Like, we don't want just March 8th to be that day where we can celebrate it.
We want it to be genuine. Yeah, we want to see longevity come from these posts that everyone's making.
Yeah, that's a good one. Okay, this one, maybe, I'm hesitating saying this, but maybe one of my favorite ones. It's called Better, Mamba Forever. It came out in August 2020, and it's about Kobe Bryant. So the kind of caption that they gave it is, Kobe Bryant taught us to be a better taught us to be better, a better scorer, better GOAT, better father. His philosophy of Mamba mentality changed the game and continues to inspire athletes like Serena Williams, Anthony Davis, Sydney Leroux, and a bunch of others. They mentioned Sky Brown too, which I was like, that's so cute. Like, give a little, how old is she again? 15 or something? Giving her that airtime. So it's narrated by Kendrick Lamar, and it was part of the week-long event honoring Kobe Bryant, and it was released in the week of what would have been his 42nd birthday back in August. So they called it Mamba Mentality Week. They said that Kobe built the Mamba mentality on his values of passion, focus, honesty, fearlessness, and optimism. He dedicated himself to inspiring the next generation to be better by applying these values to their own lives. This week, we continue that legacy. So this one, the fact that it's narrated by Kendrick Lamar, just, I feel like, kind of explains it all. It's very powerful. So let's listen to this one.
Kobe taught us to be better.
Don't cheat me. Push. Wake up every single day to get better today than you were yesterday. Whatever it takes.
Better dreamer. Better waker. Better stretcher. Better walker. Better talker. Better walking the walk and talking the talk. Better blocker. Better sprinter. Better loser. Better winner. Just be better.
Do the simple stuff right.
Better form. Focus. Better friend. Better fighter. Better rider. Better eater. Better leader. Better generation. Better nation. Just be better. Can you do that?
Let's go. Back at it.
Better player. Better shooter, better scorer, better GOAT, yep, better GOAT, better mentor, better minor, major, mover, shaker, better skater, better artist, yeah, better teacher, better preacher, better believer, better first, better future, better hero, again, better hero, better mother, yeah, better father, better father, better father, better father, better father, better me, better you, better us.
Mamba out.
Better. Forever.
That one's definitely one that you should look up for the visuals too, because again, it's like a mix of athletes and normal people. And I also love when Nike includes clips that aren't athletes. Like there was a scene of a guy playing the piano and a kid mixing music and a dad feeding his kid, that's like showing Nike's more than just a sport. Like Nike's a lifestyle, if you want to brand it that way, you know what I mean? But that one's so good.
I just wanted to mention the music choice. I loved it. Like the classical kind of, it made it like, it gave it such a fresh, like such, because they usually go with like, you know, the inspirational like beats and all this stuff, and this is such a different turn. I loved it.
And then paired with Kendrick Lamar's voice, he's got like such a like obviously lyrical like rap voice, like paired with like classical music was just such a cool mix. Yeah, that was such a good one. And obviously the message behind it, like again, it was political while still being about sport and about bettering yourself too.
For me, I feel like this ad also kind of mixed like music and sport, or like athleticism, I guess. Like as you said, like there's a guy like playing a piano in it, but like the piano in the background with Kendrick Lamar's voice and just the way he was speaking / singing / rapping, it felt like slam poetry almost. Like it felt like some sort of like a melody. It was almost like a song, and it really like, you know how like songs like take you on a journey, and like poetry takes you on like an emotional journey, and like you realize things. Like I really think that's what they achieved through this ad.
Okay, so we've got two left we want to talk about. The next one is from May of 2020 called Never Back Down, and I remember this one coming out and it just felt like it was exactly what I needed. We were, what were we, 3 months into the pandemic, not even. And this one was just so interesting. So I'll play it and then we can talk about it.
No one's ever come back from 3-1. An agonizing defeat.
Down 5-1.
We've all been underestimated and counted out. In those moments, we felt like it was over.
It's not looking good for Rafa.
But it's when we're given no chance that we somehow found that last bit of strength to keep fighting. And then we did what no one thought we could. Not even ourselves. We came back from the impossible. From being broken. We found a way when it seemed hopeless. We came back when we should have been long forgotten. And we did it time and time again. Right now, we're fighting for something much bigger than a win or championship. But if we learn anything from sports, it's that no matter how far down we may be, we are never too far down to come back.
I do this every time I watch a new one. I'm like, maybe that one's my favorite. Also, that was my mistake. That one's actually called Never Too Far Down. But yeah, no, I literally can't decide. Like that one too. Sorry, I'll also read the caption that they said, but they basically said, there's a reason we love comeback stories. Watching LeBron James, Serena Williams, and Tiger Woods, we see ourselves in them, our resolve, our grit, our hope. Now more than ever, we need these stories to remind us what we're capable of. So this one, they obviously put it out at the perfect time, right at the beginning of the pandemic, when it was, people were kind of getting down on themselves. Little did we know we'd still be here a year later, but it was a reminder that we'll be back from this and like everything's going to be okay. And also just the line when they said, if there's one thing we've learned from sports, it's that no matter how far down you may be, you're never too far down to come back. Like, it's so good. Oh, and the comments on this video too, just so positive.
A lot of their like lines and like their like those one message like things apply to so much more than just sports. And they like, yeah, they trend like that can be like with anything. You could just say to yourself like that when you're feeling down about school, about, you know, if you're stuck in a bad habit or like anything, that like that's like what you could say to yourself. And that's a lot of their messages.
They also release the commercials like at just the right time when they will gain like the most publicity. Like, I mean, yeah, that's exactly when people were like, okay, like I'm tired of this. I'm so done with COVID. Like, oh my God. And like people were struggling for different reasons.
Like how fast they probably have to put those out and get going on like the writing and finding clips. Oh my God.
I know, you would think that because they had to rush it would be bad, but they're still not bad, which is why I'm so shocked.
So I guess we'll do the last one and then we're gonna say goodbye, but this one I think is a really important one to bring up, especially on Girls Got Game, just because it's totally about women. So this one came out super recently, just this past month in March 2021, and it's featuring pregnant athletes. It did bring up a bit of past drama, so I think it's interesting. I'll give a little backstory and then I'll play it. So Allison Felix, who is an Olympic track and field sprinter, she had a contract with Nike for years, and in 2017 when her contract ended, she negotiated a renewal of the contract, and then the next year had her daughter. So she knew that she had to get back to running as soon as possible despite having a kid, and despite all of her victories in the Olympics, her new contract, Nike wanted to pay her 70% less than before. And so she said she asked Nike to contractually agree that I wouldn't be punished if I didn't perform at my best in the months surrounding childbirth, because she wanted to set a new standard for women in sports. And if she, one of Nike's most widely marketed athletes, couldn't secure those protections, who could? So Nike declined that. And then in May 2019, two of her former Nike teammates, who are also Olympic runners, they also broke their non-disclosure agreements with the company and shared their pregnancy stories in a New York Times investigation. So they told the stories, they told stories we athletes know are true but have been too scared to tell publicly. If we have children, we risk pay cuts from our sponsors during pregnancy and afterwards. And it's one example of a sports industry where the rules are still mostly made for and by men. And then after the New York Times posted that article and the public made their dislike for the brand quite obvious, Nike announced a new maternity policy for all sponsored athletes on August 12th, which now guarantees an athlete's pay and bonuses for 18 months around pregnancy. And then 3 other athletic apparel companies also added maternity protections for sponsored athletes. So the outcome of this one was awesome, but this is kind of the main message of this ad that just came out.
Can you be an athlete? You, pregnant. You, a mother. That depends. What is an athlete? Someone who moves? Sounds like you. Someone who gets it done, no matter what. You do that. Someone who listens to her body. Also you. Someone who defies gravity. You. Someone who deals with the pain, hits her limit, and pushes past it. Pushing, pushing, pushing. Someone who earns every single win. You. So, can you be an athlete? If you aren't, no one is.
So that commercial brought up a lot of controversy in the comments, but I think it's still an interesting story to see, and I think it's a great way to acknowledge female athletes, especially mothers, like we were talking about last episode, Elizabeth, when we were talking about the PNG commercials. I think this has kind of the same vibe of like, thank your mom. But I think it was a great commercial still, and the visuals are really shocking, I guess is the word, seeing what some of these female athletes can do while they're pregnant. I probably could not even do while I am not pregnant. Like, they're very talented.
Yeah, that's the thing, like, pregnancy is so hard in and of itself. Like, it's, like, imagine carrying an extra person inside you while being, you know, a professional athlete. Like, that's just insane. I have no words for it. Obviously, we could talk about this all day. I feel like, obviously, Nike, it was a bit of damage control for Nike because they didn't act the way they should have towards, you know, pregnant athletes. But nonetheless, like, I think it's still a good ad to bring awareness.
I think it's fair to say that Nike has never shied away from controversial topics and have always tried to use their platform to spread important messages. I think it's also fair to say that that's what we're trying to do here on Girls Got Game. Unfortunately, This is our last episode of the season, but we will be back in September, and we would like to thank everyone that has given us a listen and any of our fans, and we hope that we can continue to educate you and entertain you in the future.
Yeah, I thought this was a really fun season, and we got to do some cool interviews, and I think we just talked about new stuff. I kind of like this new format that we've got going, and I'm excited for next season.
I want to also thank all the people that we interviewed, because this season was a huge step for us. And even during COVID, I understand that everyone's so busy and everyone's so zoomed out. So just shout out to everyone who agreed to be interviewed. They were all just so great, and we're so glad that we got to share their voices with you guys.
Yeah, well, thanks so much for listening, and we will hopefully see you guys back in the fall. We might do some episodes over the summer on different platforms, but have a great summer and keep playing sports.
Stay tuned for some more exciting Girls Got Game next year.